As Russia's military begins a full retreat from the previously occupied city of Kherson this week, the Kremlin's information war is turning inwards. Now a rearguard conflict in Moscow among Russia's political and military clans is quickly coming into view, as Putin and the elite have begun a loyalty purge to erase any criticism of the war in Ukraine. The Kremlin's message is clear. After all independent journalists, all independent politicians and all alternative voices are destroyed, the time has come to search for traitors in the circles of relatively loyal figures. An unstoppable campaign of repression is coming into effect, where even deputies and government bureaucrats who spoke outside the shifting lines of Kremlin policy are being muted, their presence on state media cancelled. As independent Russian journalist in exile Yevgenia Albat said, what we are beginning to see are signs of smoke and the first sparks of a fire that is already raging behind the scenes.
Идет война всех со всеми.
It is a war of all against all. We've seen in the past few weeks how Shoigu and his generals have been attacked, with Kadyrov and Prigozhin as the predators. Now we get news about Sobchak, Karaulov and others with traces of evidence from the internal struggles in the KGB corporation that now controls power.
In recent weeks, prison tycoon Yevgeny Prigozhin and Chechen leader Ramzan Kadyrov have teamed up publicly on social media to criticize the generals in charge of the war. Together, these men have been seen to marginalize Defense Minister Sergei Shoigu, remove Central Military District Commander Alexander Lapin, and turn against St. Petersburg Governor Alexander Beglov.
Началась свалка в самом верхнем эшелоне.
The purges have begun at the very top echelons of Russian power. We are witnesses to a feast by predators. It is a very important indicator that right now we are witnessing the demise of the Russian power corporation, and that Putin is no longer able to act as the middleman and mediator between the various interest groups. A war of all against all has begun. A completely Hobbesian reality. But it is enough for me to want to hope that this will all lead to the implosion of this completely inhuman regime responsible for deaths in Ukraine and these events with mobilized soldiers in Russia.
Last month, police and federal agents raided the offices of the Ostorozhno media company in Moscow and arrested its business manager Kirill Sukhanov and a former tabloid magazine editor on charges of attempting to extort Rostec CEO Sergei Chemezov for 11 million rubles, or slightly less than $200,000. If the Russian military uses a piece of technical equipment, there is a big chance that it has been produced by one of the many companies owned and controlled by Rostec. In fact, Chemezov, a core Putin's ally and a powerful member of the Siloviki, oversees more than 1,000 businesses employing more than 500,000 people who engineer, manufacture and produce equipment and weapons for Russia's military and export sales. Russia's most widely known military brand Kalashnikov is one of Rostec's companies, along with truck maker KAMAZ, tank and rail car builder Ural Vagon Zavod, airplane manufacturers Sukhoi and MiG, and the weapon sales company Rosoboron Export. During the Cold War, Chemezov and Vladimir Putin worked together at the KGB in Dresden and lived in the same East German apartment building. Years later, after he became president, Putin named Chemezov to run Rostec, the parent company of Russia's defense and aerospace industry. But Ostorozhno Media is owned by Ksenia Sobchak, a Russian media personality, a one-time presidential candidate, a self-styled independent journalist, and the widely rumored goddaughter of none other than Vladimir Putin. Sobchak got to where she is partly because her father, Anatoly Sobchak, was once Putin's boss in St. Petersburg. The liberal politician was first elected as mayor, then as governor, and then became a university law professor who served as a mentor and teacher for future presidents Vladimir Putin and Dmitry Medvedev. Sobchak, until recently, was seen as an untouchable person, but now even she is under threat. There are no more guarantees for anyone. In a time of war, there can be no liberties. And the fact that Sobchak knows Putin personally and closely no longer provides her immunity. Authorities say the journalists at Осторожно Media offered to block negative coverage of Chemezov for a fee. Last week, a third journalist, Andrei Karaulov, was also charged with slander by Chemezov for material on his Telegram channel that Rostec called rumors and speculation divorced from reality. Every day, more evidence comes out showing how unprepared Russia's security, intelligence and military circles, the siloviki, were for Ukraine's forceful resistance to an invasion. Cleaning up the last Telegram channels that provide relatively critical coverage is part of the Kremlin's loyalty purge, which is why many analysts say Sobchak fled to Lithuania. She is the last person in any position of power and influence to have known Putin when he still had a boss.